right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time we're going to be tackling cloud migration.
Oh, nice.
And, I always think of cloud migration as this kind of really complicated and expensive thing.
Mm.
But apparently AI and ML are coming in to kind of like change the game.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we've got this article here. It's called Role of AI and ML in Optimizing Cloud Migration.
Okay.
And it seems like it really gets into how AI and ML are making migration smoother and more secure.
And cheaper,
Yeah, and saving businesses money.
hopefully.
We also have kind of a curve. AI, ML, and even a little bit of Hindi are changing cloud migration.
Okay, so, I think one of the big things that we're seeing is that businesses are realizing that the cloud offers a lot of agility and scalability.
Right.
And efficiency.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, trading in your old clunky bicycle for a high-performance sports car,
Yeah.
but actually moving everything to the cloud. That's where things get a little tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's got to be more than just like dragging and dropping files into the cloud.
Yeah, it's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. You got to figure out, like, where each workload should go and how to optimize resources
True.
and how to keep everything secure.
I see. So it's like a massive digital relocation project.
Yeah.
And is that where AI and ML come in?
Yeah, AI and ML can play like a really big part in that.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the key areas where AI is having a huge impact is in workload placement. So, AI can analyze your workloads, looking at things like performance needs, security requirements, and cost efficiency,
Right.
and then recommend the ideal cloud environment for you.
So it's taking the guesswork out of deciding between like public cloud or private cloud or a hybrid approach.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And, these AI and ML algorithms, they can look at all this data and find the perfect fit. And speaking of data, another huge challenge of cloud migration is transferring all that data.
Right.
I mean, that can be really time consuming.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do it manually, there's a bigger risk of errors.
Yeah, that's where I would be worried about like losing data or
Yeah.
corrupting it or something.
Yeah. But luckily, there are AI-powered tools that can automate that entire data migration process.
Oh, cool.
So, everything from transferring the files to verifying the data integrity to resolving what they call schema mismatches, where the data structures don't line up.
This is like a really careful digital assistant making sure that everything is good.
Yeah, pretty much.
But even once you move everything, I imagine there's still a lot to manage, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like, how do you make sure that all the applications are running smoothly in the new cloud environment?
Well, that's where real-time performance monitoring comes in. So these AI and ML algorithms can constantly be analyzing the performance of your workloads,
Got it.
making sure they're meeting benchmarks and flagging any potential issues.
So it's like a 247 fitness tracker, basically, for your applications,
Yeah.
keeping them healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that also helps save money, right?
Yeah, so ML can analyze past usage patterns to predict future cloud expenses,
Oh.
which is really important for optimizing costs. And so it might suggest things like switching to serverless architecture or shutting down idle resources to prevent overspending.
I see.
There was actually a case study cited in this article where a company reduced their cloud costs by 30% just by using an AI-driven optimization strategy.
30%, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, security is always a big concern
Oh, absolutely.
when you're dealing with sensitive data.
So AI-powered security tools are really important.
Okay.
They protect data during and after the migration. These tools can detect anomalies and prevent unauthorized access and just make sure that you are compliant with regulations.
Okay, so it sounds like AI and ML are handling like the big picture of migration, the cost, the security.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the actual moving and managing of individual applications?
Right.
Is that where our Hindi Docker tutorial comes in?
Yeah, so while AI is handling the more strategic decisions, tools like Docker can provide a practical framework for containerizing applications,
Okay.
which makes them more portable and easier to manage.
So before we get into Docker, can we just like quickly go over what containerization actually is?
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like packing all your belongings in boxes before you move.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Basically, containerization involves packaging an application and all its dependencies, libraries, frameworks, all the software that it needs to run into a self-contained unit called a container.
Oh, okay.
So instead of installing everything separately on a server, you just deploy this container, which has everything bundled inside.
Yeah.
And that's where Docker really excels. It's an open platform that simplifies the process of creating, deploying, and running these containerized applications.
And why is this so beneficial for cloud migration? I mean, it sounds good, but I'm curious, like how specifically does it solve these challenges we've been talking about?
Well, for one, it makes applications way more portable.
Okay.
So you can move a Docker container like from your development environment to a testing environment to production,
Right.
or even to a different cloud provider without having to worry about compatibility issues.
Oh, wow.
It's like having a universal adapter for your applications.
Okay, cool. That would definitely save a lot of headaches during a migration.
Exactly.
Um, and this portability, does it like tie into consistency as well?
Oh, yeah. So because a Docker container has everything the application needs to run, it ensures that that application will behave the same way no matter where it's deployed.
That's awesome. No more like, it works on my computer
Mhm.
excuses. And you know, this actually reminds me of something for that Hindi Docker tutorial, which is like still blows my mind that we're using this.
I know, right?
But there's a story in this tutorial about a developer who runs into trouble when they're trying to transfer a project from their home computer to their office computer.
Oh, yeah, the classic dependency mismatch problem.
Yeah, like you're working on a project at home using like a specific version of Python.
Right.
But then you take it to your office and they've got a different Python version installed and everything breaks
Exactly.
because the dependencies don't align.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Docker comes in. It
It's
saves the day.
So by packaging the application and its specific Python version in a container,
Right.
Docker ensures that the application runs consistently no matter what the host computer's environment is like.
Okay, so it's like creating a mini self-contained world.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But how does it actually work? What's going on like under the hood?
Well, to understand how Docker works, it's helpful to compare it to the old way of doing things with virtual machines.
Oh, okay, you mean like when you have multiple operating systems running on a single computer.
Exactly.
Got it.
So with virtual machines, every application basically gets its own virtual operating system,
Right.
which can be a big resource hog.
Yeah, I can see how that would use up a lot of memory and processing power.
Yeah, and Docker's different.
Okay.
Instead of creating separate virtual operating systems, Docker containers actually share the kernel of the host operating system.
Kernel, that's like the core of the operating system, right?
Yeah.
So like you have one operating system on your computer and all the Docker containers are sharing its kernel.
Exactly.
Wow, wow.
So it's way more lightweight and efficient.
So it's like sharing a ride instead of everyone driving their own gas-guzzling car.
Yeah, good analogy.
Much more eco-friendly.
And this efficiency is especially important when you're talking about the cloud because resources are often shared among multiple users.
Right, right.
And, speaking of Docker's inner workings, there are a few key concepts that are worth highlighting from the tutorial.
Oh, okay.
So first you've got the Docker file.
Okay, the Docker file. From what I gathered, that's like a set of instructions for building a Docker image, right?
Exactly. It's a text document that contains all the commands and specifications for creating a Docker image. It's kind of like a recipe that tells Docker how to build your containerized application.
So it's got things like the base operating system image, all the dependencies to install, any commands to run, and the files to copy into the container.
Exactly. And once you have your Docker file, you can use it to build a Docker image.
Got it. And the Docker image, that's like the blueprint for the container.
Yes. It's a read-only template that has everything the application needs to run.
Perfect.
And then finally, we have the Docker container itself, which is the actual running instance of the Docker image.
Okay.
So that's where the application actually executes.
Okay, so we start with a Docker file, which is like the recipe, to build a Docker image, which is like a blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
for a Docker container, which is the live running environment,
Right.
like those Russian nesting dolls, where each one has a smaller version inside of it.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about the challenges of cloud migration and how AI and ML are making it smoother, more secure, and more cost-effective.
Yeah.
And then we went on this random detour with Docker, guided by a Hindi language tutorial.
It's been fun.
It has.
Yeah.
But we're just scratching the surface here. When we come back, we'll explore how Docker's approach to containerization specifically addresses the challenges of cloud migration
Okay.
and what it all means for you, our deep diving listeners.
Sounds good. It's interesting how Docker, even though it was kind of initially designed for developers,
Yeah.
it's playing such a big part in this whole cloud migration thing.
Yeah, it really shows you how all these different areas of technology are kind of coming together now.
Right.
So we've got these companies, they're moving all their applications and data
Mm.
to the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
which we talked about. It's a pretty complex project,
Yeah,
and there could be problems along the way.
for sure.
So how does containerizing applications with Docker, how does that actually address those challenges specifically?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues during migration is making sure that the applications will actually work in the new cloud environment.
Right.
They might need specific software or libraries or configurations
Right.
that were there in the old system but might not be in the cloud.
That makes sense. It's kind of like moving to a new country and realizing your appliances don't work
Exactly.
because the voltage is different.
Yeah, and just like you might need a voltage converter for your appliances, Docker is like that for applications.
Oh, okay.
It's like a compatibility layer.
Got it.
So by putting everything the application needs in a container, you don't have to worry about compatibility.
Okay.
And you know that it'll run the same way no matter where it is.
So it's like you're shipping the whole environment with the application.
Exactly.
No more installing missing stuff
Right.
or trying to figure out weird error messages.
Nope.
Okay, cool.
So it saves a lot of time and effort, and it makes things less risky.
Right.
Like it's way less likely that things will break.
I see. And what about scaling applications?
Yeah.
When businesses move to the cloud, one of the big benefits is that they can scale up or down as needed.
Right.
So how does Docker play into that?
Docker is really good for cloud scaling.
Okay.
So let's say you have a web application and suddenly you get way more traffic than usual. In a traditional setup, you would have to scramble to set up new servers,
Right.
configure everything. It takes a lot of time.
And you could miss out on customers while that's happening.
Exactly. But with Docker, you can just easily spin up new containers. Oh, okay.
Which are really lightweight and quick to deploy.
Got it.
And that's how you handle the extra load.
Okay.
So it's a much faster and more efficient way to scale your application.
So Docker brings agility to managing applications.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like having an army of these little application instances
I like that.
ready to go at any time.
Yeah. And that agility isn't just for scaling either. Docker also makes it really easy to roll back to an older version of an application
Oh, okay.
if there's a problem with an update.
That's great in terms of minimizing downtime,
Right.
quickly fixing things.
Exactly. It's like having a rewind button.
That's cool.
And all of this really ties back to the main benefits of cloud migration: agility, efficiency, and cost effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So by containerizing applications with Docker, businesses can move to the cloud faster with less risk,
Right.
and they can optimize their cloud infrastructure for the best performance.
It sounds like Docker really gives you a lot of flexibility and control.
It does when it comes to managing applications in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty crazy that we're getting all these insights from a Hindi language tutorial.
I know, right? It just shows that valuable information can be anywhere.
It really does.
You just got to be open to finding it.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what other hidden gems of knowledge are out there
Right.
just waiting for us to discover them.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's think about what this all means for our listeners.
Okay.
We've talked about how AI and ML are changing cloud migration, making it smoother, more secure, and cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And we've looked at how Docker gives you the tools to containerize applications,
Right.
making them portable, scalable, and manageable in the cloud.
Yeah, it's all about giving businesses the power to take advantage of the cloud.
But here's a question.
Yeah.
What if you're not planning on moving to the cloud right now?
Yeah.
Could these concepts still be useful for you?
Oh, absolutely. The ideas behind containerization and the advantages of Docker,
Mm-hmm.
they go way beyond just cloud migration.
So even if you're just working on a project on your own computer, Docker could still be helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So imagine you're working on multiple projects.
Right.
Each one needs different software and libraries.
Yeah.
Setting all that up can be a nightmare.
Definitely.
But with Docker, you can create separate containers for each project,
Got it.
so they don't mess with each other.
Oh, okay.
And you always have the right setup.
So it's like having separate workspaces for each project.
Exactly, which saves a lot of time and hassle.
And it's not just for individual developers, right?
Right, Docker can be great for teams too.
Okay.
Let's say you have a team working on a project together. With Docker, everyone can be working with the same setup.
Okay.
So you avoid those "it works on my machine" arguments,
Yeah, for sure.
and it just makes everything smoother.
So Docker is like a common language for the team.
Yeah,
Make sure everyone's on the same page.
which can really boost productivity.
It's interesting how a technology that started out for a very specific purpose
It's
Yeah.
now having such a big impact in so many different areas.
It really is. It's all about innovation
Yeah.
and how tools can adapt to new situations.
And it shows that we should always be curious and
Absolutely.
open to trying new technologies.
Yeah, even if they seem unrelated to what we're doing.
Because you never know where you'll find the next big thing.
Right.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Yeah.
We've gone over the complexities of cloud migration and the surprisingly versatile Docker.
Mm,
And now it's time to wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts.
sounds good.
Okay, stay tuned for the last part of our deep dive, where we'll summarize everything and give you some questions to consider as you keep exploring cloud migration, Docker, and the ever-changing world of technology. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into cloud migration, AI, and the surprising world of Docker.
Yeah, it's been a pretty informative session, I think.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. From these kind of like big trends that are shaping the whole industry to like these practical tools.
That can make migrating to the cloud smoother
For sure.
and way more efficient. So
Definitely.
uh, let's take a minute, kind of like sum up the key takeaways for everyone listening.
Okay, sounds good.
So, we started off talking about all the challenges involved with cloud migration,
Right.
which, let's be real, can be a pretty overwhelming thing for a lot of businesses.
It is a pretty complex process
Yeah.
with a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
Like we talked about, figuring out what goes where, the data security managing costs.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But what's really cool is that AI and ML are like stepping in to tackle all those challenges head on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're like these super smart assistants
Yeah.
helping guide businesses through the whole thing,
Mhm.
optimizing resources,
Right.
even predicting problems before they happen.
Yeah, it's like having like a whole team of experts working behind the scenes,
Yeah, exactly.
making sure the move goes smoothly. And, one of the big takeaways from that article we looked at is that using AI for migration can save companies a ton of money.
It can, yeah.
Remember that case study where the company reduced their cloud expenses by 30%?
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's a great example of how AI can make migration not only smoother, but also cheaper in the long run.
Exactly. And then we kind of went on this unexpected journey into the world of Docker.
Wow, that Hindi language tutorial was a surprise hit.
Right. Who would have thought?
It really does show that valuable information can come from anywhere.
It does. You just got to be open to it.
Absolutely.
So for anyone who's not familiar with Docker,
Mm-hmm.
basically it's a platform that lets you containerize applications.
Right.
So you're packaging them up with everything they need to run.
Yeah, it's all bundled into these self-contained units
Right.
that are super easy to deploy and manage.
Yeah, kind of like creating these like portable little environments for your apps,
Exactly.
guaranteeing that they'll run the same way no matter where they are. Exactly. And what's really cool is how Docker addresses a lot of the problems we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Portability and consistency
Mm-hmm.
make it a perfect fit for cloud migration
For sure.
because you eliminate those pesky compatibility issues,
Right.
and the whole deployment process becomes way smoother.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the scaling capabilities.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Docker makes it really easy to scale applications up or down,
Right.
which is essential for cloud environments where things can change quickly.
So yeah, if you're thinking about moving to the cloud,
Mm,
Docker is something you could definitely look into.
for sure.
And even if you're not planning a full-on migration anytime soon,
Yeah.
Docker can still be incredibly helpful for like individual developers
Mm-hmm.
and teams.
It can. Yeah.
The fact that it can isolate projects and create these consistent development environments can save so much time and hassle.
Oh, yeah. It can definitely reduce a lot of frustration.
Definitely. So whether you're like leading a company and planning a big move to the cloud,
Mhm.
or you're a developer looking to like improve your workflow,
Right.
what we've talked about today can be applied in so many ways.
It can. Yeah.
And I think the main takeaway here is that technology never stands still.
That's for sure.
It's always changing.
Yeah. It's important to stay curious.
Absolutely.
Explore new tools
Mm-hmm.
and, be open to new ways of doing things.
And speaking of exploring,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from our listeners.
Yeah.
Have you run into any problems while migrating to the cloud?
Right.
Have you tried using Docker?
Yeah. What kind of insights have you gained?
We always want to learn from you guys.
Absolutely.
Keep the conversation going. So
Mm.
share your stories, thoughts, questions, all that good stuff.
We love hearing from you.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. We've seen how AI, ML, and Docker are transforming how we build, deploy, and manage applications. What other new technologies are out there that might be able to solve the challenges of tomorrow?
That's a great question.
It really is an exciting time to be involved in tech.
It is, yeah. There are always new innovations popping up. Who
Yeah,
knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner?
exactly. So let's keep our minds open, stay curious, and never stop learning.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
And we'll catch you next time for another adventure into the amazing world of technology.